What does that mean?
It means buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
We need the outlet for our rock tumbler.
Plug it in!
What, the rock tumbler or the TV?
The TV!
Young people from all over the globe are joining up to fight for the future.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part, too.
And as for you, I don't know you, but I'm sure you're a jerk. Hey, I've only been here a few minutes. What's going on?
By the powers vested in me by the Federal Communications Commission, I command you to get on the microphone in a serious manner and continue this broadcast.
You are going to need more than just two media icons like us. You need an army.
That's it. An electronic army. If I were us, I get on the internet, send out a major distress signal.
Get a podcast.
So why don't all you little idiots press your faces up against the speakers and blow your brains out?
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to This Week in Geek.net's Random Access Memories, otherwise known as RAM. I am Mike the Birdman Ashkui, and I'm joined tonight by my panel of my friends. Some new, some old, but we don't have Dave. Where the fuck is Dave? It doesn't matter. He's not here now, but I am. So I'm joined by the lovely anime aficionado, the guy who knows almost everything about movies. I wonder who would actually win between you and Dave when it came to kind of movie stuff. You are
Ken from This Anime, and it would probably depend on where we go in terms of trivia, because I'm in a, even though we're the same age, I have a different kind of skew in my movie knowledge compared to Dave. So
that's right. You and Dave are the same age. Jesus, man, you guys are like babies, but you know 10 times more than me, whereas my information is pretty much all role-playing games and Transformers. But we also welcome a new friend to the show, and who should be joining us on and off, depending on their availability and scheduling and whatnot. Well, I'm going to be welcoming my good friend from here in the lovely Royal City of Guelph, Ontario, Canada, one of the local political reporters, but also is a podcaster of some note. I welcome to the show my good friend, Adam Donaldson.
Wonder what that note is, but thank you. I'm so happy to be here and to hang with you guys on the pod, and I'm looking forward to geeking out with you.
Yeah, because like this is something you and I have talked about collaborating for at least a year or so, and
sounds about right for you sometimes.
Well, yeah, just like trying to line up schedules with me is like good frigging luck. It's like herding cats.
I can relate.
Yeah.
It's okay.
But fortunately, the schedules have finally aligned, the stars have aligned, and typically what we do here on RAM, since this is a new show to use that are going to be listening to us out there in podcast land, RAM is the show where we just kind of talk about what the fuck ever. And it can be something fun, it can be something serious, it can be something emotional, but more often than not, it's just us kind of, it's the show that doesn't quite fit anywhere. It's not as researched as Loose Cannon. It's not as intense as the Twig topic shows, which happen from time to time. And it's not as hyper-focused as Future Imperfect or The Prototype. So this is just kind of our catch-all garbage show. And the show was very much put together by Ken and Dave, over one of our hiatuses where we're like, we just need something where we can put out content that's still informative and fun, but we don't have to do ass loads of research and citations and everything. Basically, this is the kind of show where you would go up in front of your teacher and bullshit a book report for 45 minutes. But it's always one of those fun things. So recently, we've had a lot of interesting stuff happen, and one of the things that we kind of want to talk about today, and Dave actually pitched this topic, and I think it's rather topical because this year we're going to be getting some cool new superhero movies, and normally I would have JT on something like this, and I'm sure we'll talk about this on Sunday Funnies at some point, but we wanted to do something a little bit more loosey-goosey with this. We're going to be talking about superhero movies in the 90s when things kind of started to take off. I know this year we've seen the new Fantastic Four trailer, which I think looks really kind of cool. Seeing Herbie was a very pleasant surprise as someone who saw the Fantastic Four cartoon, not the 90s one, oddly enough, growing up. Seeing Galactus on screen, I know we're probably
an
going to get...
actual Galactus and not Fart Cloud Galactus.
I was gonna say.
Exactly. We're also getting like Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic. That's going to be really cool. But we also have to remember superhero movies didn't always start as something that was taken kind of seriously. I mean, you look back through the history of these things. I mean, obviously we had the Christopher Reeve Superman movies in the 70s and 80s, the Tim Burton Batmans going into the 90s, and then that's kind of where the wheels kind of started to figure out themselves, but also kind of fall off at the same time. You know, we have Steel with Shaquille O'Neal, and that's a thing that happened, I'm sure. But there were some really interesting movies during that time, and I actually have quite a number of memories with some of these movies, seeing some of these movies at a drive-in in the middle of a driving thunderstorm, which was really cool for one of these things. And it's when I found a lot of studios started to take risks on properties, and this is, I guess, arguably where we saw the birth of the modern MCU with, I think Blade came out in 1998 or 99, I want to say. And so, it was a fantastic time to say, hey, this is a comic book movie that was taken seriously. And I know in the last couple of years, a deleted scene with Morbius was put online, which I recently saw a little while ago. I know me and JT have talked about the Sony MCU, whatever the hell that is.
The Sony Spideyverse.
Yeah, the Sony not quite. It's so dumb. So SSU.
Yeah.
I guess so. I'll start with like kind of my memories, guys, and then you guys just kind of jump in with like yours. So kind of percolate on this. So the first superhero movie I clearly remember seeing, I'm going to jump back a year here, is I saw Batman 1989. And I remember this crystal clear because I was a very young lad. So I think I would have been about 9, maybe 10 at this time, maybe a little younger. And I went to the local drive-in where I'm from, which is the Owen Sound drive-in theater, which no longer exists, RIP, but was in the movie Rounders, if I remember correctly. And I remember seeing that because I went with my next door neighbor, Paul and Melissa was another girl my age, so of course I'm on a date with a girl. I wasn't, but I remember this because I'm sitting there watching it with like these guys, and back then you would listen to drive-in movies over the AM radio or the FM radio, sorry. So I remember tuning into the frequency and hearing, the score come up, and everybody knows the fucking Batman song. And I remember at one point where Batman and Vicky Vale are in the museum with the Joker, and he's asking her weight, and she's like, what? And he attaches her to the Bat utility belt, and they do the cool zipline trick. I remember at that moment, this huge thunderstorm just opened up over the theater, and just lightning, and the static was starting to come over the radio, but it really felt like you were in Gotham City for just like a hardcore moment or two. And it was really something kind of magical because like the rain just kept up, but the lightning wasn't that big thunder booming, but it only came in at the really dramatic moments during the movie. So it's almost like a divine power themselves was scoring along with us, and it was just such an intense time that I never quite forgot that. And then flash forward a couple years, I'm young now. My parents, I grew up with adoptive parents in their 60s, so clearly the most responsible people on the planet. And they would let me go to the movies by myself. So I remember going to see the Buena Vista Disney movie of Dick Tracy. And that was such a interesting time for me because, again, I'm very young, which means I'm still collecting toys. So I remember the toys for Dick Tracy, which were done by Playmates, were absolutely frigging everywhere. Although, oddly enough, I never saw the blank, which was the Madonna figure, in person. but evidently, where I was from, they were clearancing them out. So if I was smart, I really should have bought one back in 1991. Didn't know
So,
that.
spoiler alert for Dick Tracy, by the way. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry if you haven't been around since 1990 something. But yeah, I remember. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I
No.
think Dick Tracy was like 99.
Dick Tracy was
it was
90.
not
It came out the year after because it came out the year after Batman.
My brain is
because it was basically advertised like Batman, where like the Batman, because Mike and I are roughly the same age, because Batman, the whole advertising was like the bat symbol, and with Dick Tracy it was all like the silhouette of Dick Tracy like talking into his watch saying I'm on my way. That was everywhere. It was just that black poster with the Dick Tracy cutout saying I'm on my way. So it was very clearly speaking to the Batman ad campaign.
Oh yeah, and like you couldn't escape the ad campaigns for Dick Tracy, because like I remember the movie trailers were everywhere. I think McDonald's had like a Dick Tracy meal. I'm almost positive they did. In fact, a lot of my fast food memories are going to tie in the food. There's a reason I'm a fat fuck. But like I seem to recall just so much stuff happening around that. But another key memory that I remember specifically with 90s superhero movies is sometimes you would get these movie magazines that would go into how the movie was made. So you get a lot of behind the scenes pictures, you get interviews with people, you'd get a lot of stills from the movie. And I remember I was driving with my grandmother across North Dakota. We were going out to visit my mom out in Edmonton at the time, and we stopped at a 7-Eleven and we just picked up the Batman Returns McDonald's meal, because this would have been about late June, early July. And I picked up a magazine that talked about Batman Returns. And that was sort of kind of what got me interested a little bit more in behind the scenes stuff. Because like I'd had an interest from like watching RoboCop and Aliens when it came to props and everything. But I wanted to know, well, how did they make the giant penguins? Why is there a new Batmobile? Why can this one have like the Bat boat and all that stuff? And they were talking about that. And I also seem to recall a number of collector's cups that were coming out.
The collector's cups.
Still have them.
Like that was like I think I had one up until when I moved out to my first apartment when I was like 17. I think it was the Catwoman one where him and when Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton were dressed in their evening wear, and I think that's the cup that I had still. But yeah, so I had that, and then I'll jump to you guys for a moment, or for the next thing. The next big one I seem to recall was yet another Batman one. I was going into one of the later grades, so this might have been grade 7 or 8, maybe. It wasn't quite grade 9, because I remember seeing Batman and Robin, but I remember Batman Forever when that came out, the huge McDonald's ad campaign for that. And it was mostly around the food for that, of course. But I seem to recall like a weird Batman chicken sandwich or something. But the thing that I remember most were the glass collector's cups for that. And they were really, really nice. And I actually still had one of those. And you can still occasionally find them on Facebook Marketplace for like $10. And they were honestly kind of surprisingly good quality. I was actually very surprised. But yeah, just like growing up with like a lot of the superhero movies in the 90s, it was toys, it was fast food promos, and it just kind of took the culture. But when I was in elementary school, I don't remember many kids being into anything besides Batman. Maybe some kids were into Dick Tracy, but not a whole hell of a lot, because Batman was cool. Dick Tracy was like my grandparents' thing. And then they tried to capture that pulp superhero thing, and we'll talk about the Phantom and the Shadow a little bit kind of later in this too.
And the Spirit.
Yeah, and the Spirit, I forgot about.
That was 2008.
That was 2008, right?
2008, yeah.
But yeah, it's just like those are some of my earliest memories, but not my favorite memory of the 90s. So let's go to our newcomer, Adam. What are some of your memories of the 90s superhero craze?
I have a lot of the same as you, and I was fortunate enough to still hang on to. I also, was able to pick it up because I was really into garage sales when I was in high school, and so I'd hop on my bike and go around to garage sales, and so I was able to pick up a lot of some of the merchandise for a song. So in the process, I managed to collect all the Batman Returns collector's cups, and I did get the 4 Happy Meal toys that came with Batman Returns, and they were a Batman. He's in the little torpedo Batmobile, and you would yank it back and would go. There was a Catwoman one where it had like a tail where you'd push it to go back and forth, and the tail would wag. And there's the Penguin one, had a twirly umbrella, so when you pushed it, the umbrella on the front of it would turn. And then there was a Batmobile where you would press a button on the back of it and would launch the torpedo portion, like in the movie. So I've very clear memories of that stuff. You skipped over one though from 1990.
Oh,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh my god, I forgot about that one. That one was. What can you say about TMNT? I mean, really, that was everywhere.
It was everywhere. It was like such a phenom, and it's looking back, it's like weird how big a phenomenon it became because it starts off as this underground comic that was pretty ultra violent and like a takeoff of the Frank Miller. I think Frank Miller's Daredevil was the direct inspiration for it. So it's like bloody and violent and black and white, and then it turns into a cartoon, and then it becomes like just like a cultural force of nature. And you get this movie, which is kind of the best of both worlds. It's kind of family friendly in a way, where all the turtles have their personalities and they have their colorful masks, but at the same time, it's still kind of dark and violent. And Raphael has like a crisis of
it played
conscience.
It kind of played a mix between the cartoon and the comic.
Yeah, it finds like this weird kind of sweet spot between the two, and to the point where I remember there was controversy because it's like, oh, the kids are playing ninja on the playground like the Ninja Turtles, and they're maybe someone will get kicked in the face.
Well, that was in the UK they couldn't name them.
Yeah. Ninjas, that's right.
So
it was Hero Turtles. Now I remember very specifically a controversy that happened in my local area related to this. I remember that maybe I'm misremembering this, but I remember the provincial police, like where I'm from, just to give everybody context out there listening. We have the provincial police, which is sort of like, I guess, the state troopers sort of thing, I guess would be the equivalent. And they were warning parents about kids having nunchucks for a long time. So I remember a lot of us kids were making homemade nunchucks using dowels and dog chains and nails.
Yeah.
I remember there were a couple of kids around me that were pretty good nunchuckers. Like those kids could spin those things around. Like, not exactly Bruce Lee, but holy shit, if they got a hold of you, they would fuck you up.
It didn't help. There's an entire sequence in the movie where there's a nunchuck off between Michelangelo and one of the foot guys, where they both are showing off how fast they can whip the things around. That looked pretty cool when you're 10.
Yeah. But yeah, like I completely forgot about the Ninja Turtles because like I remember the cartoon was, stupid huge, and the merchandise was everywhere. The weirdest thing, I remember 2 things specifically, and obviously they're fast food promos, but I remember, and these things are so tasty, and I've seen people try to recreate these on YouTube and on Pinterest. You could recreate the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Hostess pies, where the advertisement was fresh from the sewer to your mouth. Oh boy, isn't that delightful? But there were these vanilla puddings.
It sounded good on paper, but when you say it out loud, it sounds stupid.
Yeah,
you can see
fresh from your asshole to your mouth.
Welcome
you
to
can
marketing.
See how it would work on a poster. Yeah, it looks good on a poster when you're looking at a Ninja Turtle, but when you're just saying it out of context, it's
You're
It sounds.
like, hey, wait a sec.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like disturbing. Here, drink this diarrhea. But the weirdest thing I remember, I was going through, I think it was No Frills at the time. And in Canada, at least during the 90s and into the 2000s, we would get some of the cool, like, cereals and weird shit that you Americans take for fucking granted. But I remember seeing these pizza flavored hot dogs. And they were like, I certainly wouldn't call them good. That's for fucking sure. Now the cheese ones weren't too bad in their defense, but they had these pizza flavored ones. Holy shit. If dog food could be sold commercially and consumed by a human, that's what it was. It was utterly terrible. But yeah, like I seem to recall more merchandise for the cartoon as opposed to the live action movie, although the live action movie did spawn a line of toys that were called Movie Star Turtles. And there were the 4 turtles, there was the Foot Soldier, Super Shredder, Splinter, which I think I saw like once. There was never an April figure to my knowledge. I think maybe later on she got one. And Hoka and Razar, but they were done in like exaggerated style, and they did appear in the cartoon very, very, very briefly. But yeah, like I can't believe I completely forgot Ninja Turtles. What were some of the other things, Adam, that you remember? Like, were there like any lesser known movies that maybe we're forgetting here? Like, when did the Dolph Lundgren Punisher come out? Like 89?
That was 89. Yeah, no, that was like right on the cusp. It's like this. It's weird. This is a really weird time. Just because I was thinking about this today, you have it's a Batman decade where you get 3 different Batman movies, and then you also get Mask of the Phantasm as well, the animated Batman movie, which was taken from the animated series. I think it was supposed to be a direct to video, and then
DVD, and then one of the execs saw it and were like, "Let's put this in the theater."
Yeah, and then it came out on Christmas. I remember that. There's also this like weird, as you said, like the pulp heroes, the Phantom, the Shadow. You also get like made up heroes like Sam Raimi's Darkman, which doesn't have a comic book, origin, but is very much a comic book movie of a sort. Also, that was made because Sam Raimi wanted to make a Shadow movie, oddly enough, and they wouldn't give him the rights to the Shadow, so he made up his own Shadow analog. But you also get like Blank Man, which was like the Wayans brothers like send up of like superheroes, and Meteor Man, which was also kind of interestingly, those are 2 like both led by predominantly black talent as well. It's really weird because you get that stuff, you get the made up stuff, you get the Batman stuff, you also get lesser known heroes like The Mask. You also get like Barbed Wire. I'm not sure. This isn't something I was dealing with today. It's like, how much of this counts as like, is Barbed Wire a superhero? Because
she was like
book. It is based on a comic book. Yeah.
Yep.
Tank Girl.
I actually remember seeing that in theaters.
Yeah.
Tank Girl, like
I've actually never seen.
Only movie you will see with Ice-T dressed up as a kangaroo human hybrid. Yeah. It's amazing. Like The Crow, again, that's like kind of based on a graphic novel.
I was going to bring up The Crow because The Crow still holds up.
Oh,
I watched it last year in prep.
Watched it
in prep for the new one, which was awful, but that's a whole nother story.
I think I watched
which I will say.
I watched it in lieu of the new one.
Which I will say, me and Dave do have plans to revisit Crow 2024. I just maybe have to get Dave drunk or high before we possibly tackle that one.
I haven't seen it yet, but I would love to. Yeah.
It's, you know what?
Yes.
I'll say this about the Crow 2024 as kind of a preview. There are elements in there that are interesting. But I would wonder if it would make for an interesting pilot to a TV show. Hell, there's something we could kind of talk about, like very kind of briefly too. Like, think about all the superhero shows that came out of the 90s. You had like Cleopatra 2025, The Crow, Stairway to Heaven had a show. Like all those 90s-esque action shows that Alex really loves came out
It was
of
a
this. And I
Flash
would
TV
wonder if
show.
that's the... Oh, I
Yep.
forgot about
The
that.
90s
right.
Flash show.
And then there was the
Wesley Shipp?
pilot for the Justice League. Yeah.
Yep.
There was a Justice League of America TV show, or a pilot, with, I think it was like David Ogden Stiers as the Martian Manhunter. And then there was an Atom, there was a Guy Gardner, Fire and Ice were in it, and I think the Flash was in it too. So it was a pretty decent team.
Except there was like a situation comedy or something like that. It was like something really weird.
It's a little, yeah. I think it was like them, if I remember correctly, it was them like looking back from like their retirement. That it was kind of like it was after they retired, they're looking back at these stories or something weird like that.
Mm-hmm. So Ken, I guess you're a little bit younger than us, obviously. How did you get into 90s superhero movies? Because like, what year were you born?
I'm a 92 baby. So probably the first major one was because it was BTAS. That was the thing to watch as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it post Fox Kids. So it was probably year 2 of BTAS is when it moved stations. And honestly, I mean, Mask of the Phantasm is a friggin' masterpiece.
Oh yeah,
in my opinion.
We should do a commentary on that at some point.
Oh,
anyway, go on. Anyways,
but what? Oddly enough, Mask of the Phantasm wasn't really the first superhero movie that I watched. I had a VHS copy of Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero.
Oh wow!
And that is by far that I know lines from that movie word for word pretty easily because I watched that VHS tape very hard. That was a very high rotation movie on my VHS player, but and then obviously I own the Blu-ray complete with the complete animated series set. But honestly, really my 90s superhero knowledge comes from coming back years later as I'm growing up and just pulling from stuff like TMNT movie I had on DVD. That was a rotation. That was a heavy rotation one. Just the first one, and didn't really touch Secret of the Ooze or 3, which 3 is its own cluster F of a movie.
So weird.
But like, yeah, it's very weird. But honestly, coming into it as an adult, mostly, it's like The Crow. Mystery Men is a film that fucking holds up so well for some stupid reason.
I'm so surprised they never made a sequel to that, even in this modern era.
Because it bombed so fucking hard.
Oh, it's so clever though, and that disappoints me. I think
it was ahead of its time because it was spoofing superhero movies before
there were many
superhero
of them.
movies hit big.
This is the weirdest thing about Mystery Men. I'm glad Ken raised it. It's like it's the movie that comes at the end of like a phenomenon of like a trend, but it comes at the beginning. And to demonstrate how badly Mystery Men bombed, the Smash Mouth song All Star was on the soundtrack of Mystery Men, but everybody attaches it to Shrek 2 years later.
Yep.
Man, like that's wild. Like I remember seeing that in the drive-in too.
Come to think of it, Katzenberg was at Disney by the time Mystery Men came out.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was already at DreamWorks developing the DreamWorks slate when Mystery Men came out. Actually, I think
right.
I think Prince of Egypt had come out at that point.
Yeah, it probably. Yeah, no, Prince of Egypt was 99, so yeah, he was already at DreamWorks.
Yeah.
I'm just like going through my head. It's just like because that era of like Katzenberg, Disney, and I'm a Disney historian, and I love Disney history, and that is a huge part of my childhood, and it's also a huge part of my adulthood. I just like learning about Disney history and whatnot.
It is a fascinating history.
Oh, it is a fascinating history with so many ups and downs, and I mean, I've seen every single Disney animated film, and I have a ranking on my Letterboxd.
Oh wow, that's intense.
And oddly enough, a lot of the spliced compilation films they're all awful. They're almost all awful for multiple reasons. There's only one that I really enjoy, but that's another conversation. Honestly, The Crow, I sort of count heavy metal in there somewhat. Yeah. It's comic book associated. And like heavy metal, I found out about heavy metal through South Park when South Park spoofed them.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And that episode is still my favorite South Park episode.
Mine's probably the Warcraft one. I'm a big fan of.
Warcraft's up there. Warcraft's up there too. But yeah, no, heavy metal's up is there. I'm fond of the Stallone Judge Dredd, but
same. I love the costume design in that movie.
Yeah,
the production all the production design is beautiful. It's just not Judge Dredd.
Yeah, like
yeah.
Because like once upon a time, I again went to the movies to go see this by myself. I must have been like 14, seeing Judge Dredd, and I knew nothing about it other than it was Sylvester Stallone. There was Armand Assante. For some reason, I knew that name because of the movie. I think it was like Assassins or something, and. I'm like, this looks awesome. And just seeing him come out, like, I always thought the Judge Dredd helmet from that movie looks a little bit cooler than the one from Dredd 2012. But the one from 2012 has the opaque lenses, so you really can't see his eyes.
Yeah.
But just like, I love the Lawgiver from 95 as opposed to 2012. Again, that's a prop guy thing, but just seeing the like ABC robot, the flying motorcycles, it really was.
The 90s was peak production designer heaven.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like the 80s, 90s, that's when production designers were having a ball. And you'd had, and hell, Joel Schumacher was a production designer that became a major director, and it shows in literally all of his movies. He's a great production designer.
One thing I don't think gets nearly enough credit for some of the superhero movies in the 90s is a lot of these movies had really banging soundtracks. Like,
that was of the time because soundtracks were big money makers.
Yeah,
you could make back your entire budget from just the soundtrack sales.
Oh yeah, because like again, like to look at movies like say Batman Forever, you had "Kiss from a Rose" by Seal, you had "Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me" by U2. I think there was there was "The End of the Beginning of the End" by Smashing Pumpkins. Although I think that was Batman and Robin, I want to say. But right, again, the soundtracks were phenomenal. The movie that I remember the most that has a lot of resonance with me, it's probably one of the first times I actually went to the theater and asked for a movie poster, was in 97 when Spawn came out. So when Todd McFarlane's Spawn was really catching on, McFarlane was doing all these things with his toy line. His figures were like highly detailed, incredibly sculpted, but they weren't really action figures. You couldn't really play with them. They had limited posability.
McFarlane Toys is more of a collector's boutique than it is anything else.
They've gotten better since like they did like their Movie Maniacs thing in like the later half of that decade into whatever, but that's a totally different topic for a different day. But I remember
if I can refer people for a minute. I don't know if you can get the NFB streaming site in the National Film Board of Canada in the United States, but there is a a documentary about Todd McFarlane that the NFB made in, I think it was late 90s. It was when he was buying all the baseballs. That is really good and interesting. I think it's called The Devil You Know, but there's somebody who's interviewed in that doc who was like a collector of the McFarlane toys, talking about how he takes all the money from his minimum wage job and buys all the latest McFarlane, like by the box, which just what a phenom that was in terms of like collectibles. But it's also a really good doc about McFarlane himself. He does a lot of talking head stuff in it.
It looks like it's probably I don't know. I can literally see it on YouTube right now.
Okay, but then
That's
great.
really
Yeah,
cool.
watch it on YouTube. But yeah, it's a good doc.
Awesome, Ken. I want you to put that in the show notes. But yeah, like the reason I bring that up is like I remember getting the soundtrack for Spawn, and it had a lot of collaborative groups on it. Like I think it was like the Sneaker Pimps and Metallica. There was Filter with another person. Marilyn Manson had a soundtrack on there, or had a song on there before he got real. Or before, like this was after his Smells Like Children album in like 95. But the song that really captured me was something I really didn't expect, because it was a later track. The group later became huge, Incubus, and the song was called Familiar. So it was Familiar by Incubus and DJ Greyboy. I think it's like track 11. And I remember going to Music World, for you Canadians, RIP, and it was this wonderful store where you could buy so much cool merchandise, music CDs, cassettes, VHSs, DVDs when they were sort of new. One of the few places you could buy anime mainstream.
Yes.
But I remember going to the Music World, buying the soundtrack, and because I knew people at our local theater, I was like, hey, when Spawn's done playing, can I get the poster? So they gave me the poster that was the Spawn's face with the green eye. And I think I remember getting the VHS rental poster where it was him in the full Spawn costume. And that's the first time I'd seen Michael Jai White. I remember following him later into Universal Soldier 2, where he played Seth, the bad guy with Bill Goldberg. And then, like, again, I mentioned the Batman and Robin soundtrack was fucking huge. Not a superhero movie, but kind of in that weird adjacent. I remember when the Godzilla soundtrack blew up, and you know that dickhead Puff Daddy had that song that sampled the Led Zeppelin song "Come With Me."
Jameer, yeah.
That and Jamiroquai had like a song on there, and
All Flowers.
there was like just so much stuff just blew up with soundtracks. And then things really got serious when Blade came out. Again, this was a character I had only ever heard of on Spider-Man, the animated series, where he was just a black dude with like a biker jacket with like a spiked belt. And I think he had a sword in the show, if I remember right.
I don't even think Blade's comics were in print.
No, I think he was in the
came out.
I think he was in Midnight Suns. Like, I think he was like a supporting character in like the Doctor Strange comics at the time. But it was just like, what the fuck is this? Because we'd never seen anything that looked this serious before. I mean, Spawn tried to do the R-rated superhero thing, and it was kind of goofy and stupid.
Well, to be fair, the Spawn movie we got in theaters was the PG-13 version.
That's true. But even the R-rated cut's not... It's different, but not drastically so, where it's like, oh my God, I need to re-examine.
It's only like a 15-minute difference.
Not even. Like, the scenes that are added are so friggin' minimal. It's like, okay, that was cool, I guess, sure.
And also the terrible CGI in hell, but that's another story.
The CGI looks like hot garbage now. It is so
It looks like hot garbage now, and it looked like hot garbage back in the 90s.
No, it didn't look much. But at least it had Flash. I mean, it also had, like, for us Canadians, like, Spaz Williams did the CG, where it was the visual effects supervisor for it. So there was patriotic pride in talking about, like, the accomplishment of Spawn. And I guess McFarlane was Canadian too. So there's a I don't know what you call it, like a Canada forgiveness card if something's terrible, but if it features substantive Canadian talent. But yeah, no, it wasn't so great at the time either. The thing I like about Blade is it's kind of like it's a 90s superhero movie that also belongs, because you can say it, and I think you can make the argument, and I have made the argument, it sort of kicks off the superhero boom that we're kind of still living in. But the Blade movie is a very 90s superhero movie in that it completely not completely, but it does disregard much of the comic book stuff about Blade, where like his origin was like he's just a guy fighting vampires. Like the Daywalker stuff isn't part of the original Blade mythos. So and Whistler too. I think Whistler was created for the animated series. I think I read that in the MCU book Joanna Robinson co-wrote. So there's a lot about the Blade movie that is just like cut out of whole cloth via like David Goyer and Stephen Norrington and Wesley Snipes creating this thing that, yes, based on a comic, but it's kind of its also own unique thing that leads to a greater degree of respect for the comic book material. It's like the snake eating itself. I find that really fascinating about Blade as a cultural product.
Oh yeah, like it's something that was really ahead of its time, and Marvel at that point was in some fucking trouble because they were talking about bankruptcy. The comics were going through at that time maybe Age of Apocalypse or Spider Clone or Onslaught. Not a great time to be a comic book fan, to be quite honest with you.
No.
And after the disaster that was Batman and Robin, I mean, we wouldn't see a Batman movie till 2005 or 2004, something like that. So it's like, what was out there? And we did touch on this briefly. Studios started taking risks. We saw The Shadow with Alec Baldwin, which I kind of want to go back and rewatch, actually. I know it wasn't terribly great by my like young self standards, but I love the idea of The Shadow. And here's why. When I was growing up, like I've mentioned, my grandparents were raising me. So they were in their 60s, which means they grew up in the 1930s and 40s. So I remember my grandmother took me to go see this. I'm like, Grandma, didn't you used to listen to this on the radio? Yeah. And she could tell me like The Shadow knows and all this shit. And the Phantom I knew about from a cartoon from the 80s called Defenders of the Earth. And this is the first time I'd seen Billy Zane before he went on to Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. He would do Titanic a couple of years later. And I honestly thought he was a pretty cool Phantom. I mean, the costume is goofy. I think you could probably do it now and have it look pretty cool. But it was something I didn't expect. And these movies did not do the superhero genre any favors, unfortunately, because nobody knew who these characters were. It's cool that you're taking risks on properties, because I think after Dick Tracy, they started to look at properties that were probably low risk. So you would get The Rocketeer, you would get Dick Tracy, which, weird sidebar about Dick Tracy, Warren Beatty evidently still holds the copyright to this shit.
Yep.
He sure does.
Yep, he does.
And he randomly does.
He is an asshole.
It's so
is
weird.
The best word.
Let me describe it.
So if you go on YouTube, type in.
There was during
please.
the pandemic, he does this special. I think it was for TMC in the United the cable channel Turner Classic Movies. We get it here in Canada too. I'm not sure why I was saying in the United States, but he was with Ben Mankiewicz and Leonard Moulton, and they were on Zoom. Essentially, the three of them were on Zoom together. Warren Beatty is dressed up as Dick. Keep in mind, Warren Beatty is on the high side of 90. He is dressed up as Dick Tracy, being addressed by Leonard Moulton and Ben Mankiewicz as Dick Tracy. He is playing Dick Tracy in this like 30-minute thing that was made for TCM. Why? Because he has to appear as Dick Tracy in something to retain the rights. He's on the high side of 90. He hasn't directed a movie in 20 years, but he is thoroughly convinced he will get this sequel off the ground someday.
It's so crazy. And it was only shown at 3 o'clock in the morning once.
Yep.
It's so weird. I mean, people are strange. And like one of the other things that people are weird.
You want to talk about strange? I do want to bring this up because it's based on a comic, Men in Black.
Yeah, which I remember seeing that in theater. I think I must have saw that movie in theaters that summer easily 5 times. And that was when I think Hollywood got the weird movie right. Because very low production run of the Men in Black comic, and it was super successful. It spawned an animated series. It spawned a line of toys. It spawned a role-playing game, which I think I still have, done by West End Games. So the merchandising for that really kind of popped off, but it spawned a franchise. I mean, we had a new sequel during the pandemic, which unfortunately didn't do too well.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's not great, but it's watchable. But yeah, like Men in Black, that's one a lot of people don't even talk about in this conversation.
I mean, I literally quote Tommy Lee's comment about people a lot.
And it's weird.
Way more than I should.
Yeah. Like, think about how much the 90s superhero movie, like, between Independence Day and Men in Black, that made, like, Fresh Prince, obviously outstanding television, but Men in Black and Independence Day made Will Smith that household name, that icon. Like, I remember
those were the two. It was Men in Black and Independence Day that gave him the title of he was the king of 4th of July.
Yeah, so like 100%. Now, when did Men in Black 2 come out?
Men in Black 2 was in the was after the
2002
turn of the century.
Yeah, because like I remember. Oh wow, I didn't think it was that long. Like I remember, again, going back to merchandising, the first expensive pair of sunglasses I ever bought were a pair of Men in Black Ray-Bans, the Predator Ks. And they are still some of the nicest sunglasses I've ever owned, but my friend Melissa sat on them. Now, to quote Mortal Kombat, those are $500 sunglasses, asshole. But it was like, my God.
Why I never
like,
buy
it's
sunglasses
so weird
worth more
just
than
to see how
$20,
far.
Go on.
Yeah, dollar store, 100%. But yeah, it's crazy just to see how far things have really kind of come. Like you mentioned Mystery Men, we've talked about Blade, Ninja Turtles. Like it's kind of amazing to see how far the MCU has come, the DC universe, which is now in the middle of a reboot.
If I
We'll see
may,
how
look
that
at
goes.
it another way.
But to think,
we've come a long way in terms of like story, like the types of movies we can make. One of the things I like about the 90s movies is that like even the Batman movies, Batman Returns doesn't look like Batman Forever, and there are like a lot of differences between Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, even though they're the same director too. You look at all of these movies and they all look different, they sound different, they feel different. I'm not sure you can say the same about the Marvel collection, and even bringing into some of the DC movies. There are movies that you can point to.
They are
maybe 4.
You can make an argument that some
for
stand out, but
well,
like every one of these movies has their own.
There are.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah.
100%. There's early on the MCU has different flavors way more than it does now, but I feel like it's just we've gotten to the point where superhero comics and superhero movies are in the exact same spot in terms of public consciousness and whatnot. So I treat modern superhero films like I treat the comics, where it's like, this is part of a larger universe, but I'm watching a film of a single entity, and when it treats it like a single entity, then I can I think the movie is great. When it doesn't, that's where I think a lot of the modern MCU.
Yes,
is
I
falling apart.
agree with that, and I think that's one of the things that concerns me. Not to get into what's coming up, but the Superman movie that's coming up this year. It's
I'm fucking.
I think it looks cool, but I
think it looks
kind of also
cool.
want a Superman movie. I don't want a Superman movie co-starring Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific and
I trust James Gunn. He is building a universe. He is building a universe that's in media res, so superheroes exist, and there's just a lot of characters that are just
super paranoid
up,
about this, Ken.
And you're just gonna go.
Well, see,
Look,
I hate the way Guy Gardner looks. He looks like Uncle Fester from fucking The Addams Family.
Look, Guy Gardner has always looked like an asshole.
Yeah, but he looks
I'm sorry.
terrible. At least Mr.
That's
Terrific
on purpose.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that haircut's a fucking choice, let me tell you.
It's a choice he's made for 40 years. But
Jesus Christ, get a barber. Fucking your mother let you leave the house like that? Asshole.
What would be funny, like, people have proposed this. What if the death that sparks the Green Lantern TV series that they're working on is Guy's death?
You know what? I think that could be done well because I trust Nathan Fillion. I think you could pull that off if it was done appropriately, because I remember reading the death of Superman in the 90s when Doomsday beat the ever-living shit out of the Justice League and beat the fuck out of Guy Gardner. I'd be okay with that. I mean, that would be really cool.
Yep.
So one thing, looking at back some of the superhero movies, there were some of them that we never saw. Now, there's the infamous Roger Corman Fantastic Four, which if you want to learn more about that, me and JT talk about that on Sunday Funnies. But we were supposed to...
It's the most accurate version of Fantastic Four, and it's not that accurate.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I kind of like the costuming that Roger Corman did. I really do.
I have a very personal attachment to the Fantastic Four because that was the first comic I ever read as a kid, like the original Fantastic Four, like the first 12 or so issues of the original run of Fantastic Four. Like that was my childhood.
Oh wow!
So it holds a really special place in my heart, and it has hurt me for so long, and I'm so and going into the trailer, I'm like, oh, they get it.
Yeah.
Oh, they get it.
Great,
because there are very specific bits, especially that talk with Reed and Sue in bed. That specific conversation is exactly those characters to a T. And I'm so happy that at least the script is superb. It's getting these characters. Ben is friggin' perfect in the movie from what we've seen of him. Johnny is Johnny. You can't really fuck up Johnny too much. Yeah. Even Chris Evans did a good job as Johnny. So
I mean,
I can't really complain.
There was this thing I saw on Blue Sky, and it was a comparison of Michael Chiklis in his thing trench coat compared to the new one. And again, just how far costuming has come. And I love Michael Chiklis. Again, it's going to be a great guy.
The problem with Michael Chiklis is he's a short dude.
Yeah, and it's Michael Chiklis.
You can't.
No matter
I think this thing is also mocap.
You can't really do much with that. And Michael Chiklis was super. Yeah, it is mocap. It is mocap. They did have a practical puppet on set, just as a reference point, I think, for the effects team. But overall, like, that is pretty accurate to the comics.
Yeah. When I saw Herbie, I was like, that's really cool. Thank you for doing
that. I knew Herbie was already in the movie because I've been following this pretty hard in terms of the casting and everything and whatnot. We don't know technically who's voicing Herbie, but I assume that's Paul Walter Hauser is voicing Herbie, which would be nice. I like Paul Walter Hauser. I think he's a cool dude and he's very knowledgeable when it comes to his movies, and he very much he loves movies, and he's very passionate about it, and he will call people out when they're talking shit. Simple as that.
So here's a question.
I'm not going to elaborate.
So here's a question to the panel as we begin to wind things down here. Okay, so looking at the breadth of superhero movies that came out during the 90s, let's say you are given creative control, a reasonable budget, and a reasonable cast. Which one do you want to reboot? I'll let you guys think about this for just a minute, because this is one I've been thinking about. I would love to redo The Shadow, but I'm not doing it as a movie. I'm going to do it as a television series. I'm going to bring it to a network like... I want eyes on it, and I want a lot of eyes on it. So I'm going to bring it to AMC, and I'm going to have it be the dark detective noir show, and then I'll lean into some of the more fantastical elements, like his ability to blend in the stuff. It's not a good idea to get an Alec Baldwin cameo in 2000 and whatever. So as long as I can sample the original broadcast from the 1930s and 40s, that is my Easter egg. And I want to build a cinematic universe of pulp heroes. So what I'm going to do is, over the course of, say, 12 episodes, because I like the idea of the British television season. You don't get too many and you don't get too much. So I'm going to sprinkle in little Easter eggs to about the Phantom, the Spirit. And then at the end of the first season, the Shadow is about to be arrested. And you see a yellow trench coat and the Dick Tracy watch going, I'm coming to bring him in. That would be I want to start the pulp universe. I think that would be cool if handled well. You can still do it a little tongue in cheek, but I think having it on a network like AMC gives people eyes on it, because you still have the prestige of The Walking Dead from that network. You've got a reasonable budget, and let's be real, after, disasters like Batwoman didn't go as well as they wanted to, the Arrowverse is dead right now.
Well, the Arrowverse is officially dead. They actually ended it with Crisis.
So I'm looking for something I don't want CW. I want something a little bit more interesting, and I think you could do it with something like that. Maybe if I wanted to be a little bit more violent, maybe I could bring it up to HBO to the level of Watchmen or something like that. But even then, I don't know, because everybody says, I want to be on HBO. No, I want to give another network a chance because I want more eyes on it. And I think it might be a chance to do something more and more interesting. If I had to make a movie, I'm trying to think here, if I had to remake one from the 90s, okay, set it in the DCU, because we already know they're going to establish that. I want to give Steel another chance. Not Shaquille O'Neal, but he gets a cameo. And do something interesting.
I mean, you could genuinely do that down the line. I'm not kidding. You can build a Death of Superman and make it last a whole saga, all
build up towards it. Yeah.
Do Death of Superman, but then spend years just making other movies and continuing the universe without Superman, and then bring Superman back.
Yeah, because I think that would be really cool. I mean, if I were to remake Steel, I had this idea from watching Star Trek's Section 31 movie. I know, moving on. But there's an interesting line in it. And this guy gave me such a cool idea. I can't remember the actor's name, but he says, my character, he made up this whole backstory in his head for his character. His character wears a mech suit. And he says to it, the suit is me, I am the suit. So when you say something about the suit, you're talking about me. So what if Steel was a disabled character who built the suit so he could walk again, and you could take an alternate take on this? So if you didn't want to do the John Henry, whose origin, is tied into the comics, if you wanted to do another take on it, you could do a character who maybe worked at Star Labs or whatever, or LexCorp, or whatever bullshit you want to do. and that's how they build their suit, and then maybe they can fight Toyman or Metallo or some bullshit. Like you could do some really interesting things with that.
I think Metallo's
still
a
have it
little
work.
too
Predictable?
well,
Powerful, maybe?
Metallo's a little too Superman focused.
Maybe Toyman then.
Toyman makes more sense.
Well, you took
Yeah, so
mine.
that's
I
what
was gonna
I
say
would pick. So
Steel.
who wants to pitch a TV series or movie? Doesn't matter. Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, I know Todd has been trying to get this off the fucking ground for literally decades now,
Yeah.
but it's Spawn. It's Spawn.
I wanted that Sam and Twitch sequel so bad.
Yes.
I mean, don't get me wrong. We do have a legit good Spawn in the animated show, but like, come on, you can genuinely make a good Spawn movie nowadays. If you had enough money, you could make a good Spawn.
Well, I think there's a lot of creative
the problem
control
is
too that he wants.
that Todd McFarlane is a fucking psychopath and no one wants to work with him.
Now, what would your story be?
Yeah, he wants more creative control and no one wants to work with his ass.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cuz he's a little out there. But yeah, it's Spawn. You can't.
Now, would you take the approach they're doing, because they want to do it as a police procedural with Sam and Twitch, and Spawn is sort of a present character throughout the story, but he's not always throwing punches. Would you do that? Or would you tell the story of like heaven and hell? Would you do the Billy Kincaid storyline, more him versus the Violator, maybe Overkill? What is your story? Or something completely whole cloth?
I think either you adapt a specific run of the comics, or you basically do whole cloth.
Okay. Do you have any ideas for a TV show you could do from any of the 90s heroes?
Honestly, I think you could do Blade. Obviously, the MCU wants to do it as a movie, but that ain't fucking happening anytime soon.
Yeah. Nobody talks about the TNT Blade TV series that lasted a couple episodes.
Yeah, and I think you can build. I think you can genuinely build Midnight Blade.
Yeah,
and
it's like kind of like
Suns
a supernatural
as
show.
a TV series.
That'd be cool. I'd really enjoy that.
Because you can take all those but like you can take all those characters of Midnight Suns, like Ghost Rider and all those guys, and just kind of bring them in, and then maybe once in a while
you could be like
Benedict
Charlie's
Cumberbatch
Angels
shows up
with Doctor Strange
just as
Charlie
a cameo
and no angels.
That'd be fucking awesome. I'd love
But no,
that.
I like that. I was gonna say Steel too. I did like a lot of your ideas, Mike. But I think that it's a character that's ripe. Even going with the John Henry Irons storyline about somebody who is saved by Superman, feels inspired to do something. Whether you can incorporate Death of Superman. I do kind of like that idea. But even just like he's saved by Superman, and he thinks to himself, "How can I make a difference too?" And so he builds himself that suit of armor, and you could do something kind of street level, but also kind of techie, like in the Iron Man-ish mold too. So that was my initial idea. My second idea was, and I can't believe no one's talked about making or going back to The Mask, and I don't know if it's because Jim Carrey's cast such a shadow, so to speak, with that performance, but
oh yeah,
of Mask. I mean,
they tried to
the polar
redo it again,
spectrum
and
of
it
Jim Carrey
failed
and Jamie
miserably,
Kennedy.
so-
There must be some comedian who could do this.
If you,
that's the thing I was thinking.
or
of.
you,
Yeah, that
or you
would
could
be my
just go
take on it.
straight up comics
Or animated, but-
Mask and go full rated R.
the original Dark Horse comic of
animated.
The Mask, the Mask doesn't just make you a cartoon character; it makes you a psychopath.
Yeah.
It just makes you completely chuck out any inhibition. So
you are, yeah. You're basically a
no
killer
moral compass.
That's exactly right. And that
killer, you're basically
you could do that
a killer
Dread style, do it
that
in
uses cartoon
3D
logic
for
to kill
$20 million, and I think that would definitely win you a cult following, if not make it an outright hit. And I think there's 94, so this movie's now 26 years old, if my math is right. Yeah, so I guess 21 years old, but still, really, we're just gonna sit on The Mask?
It's about that time.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm kind
here's
of
the thing.
surprised.
I think
yes,
because it's a new line. I don't know whether Warner Brothers has the copyright or who has the copyright for that.
It could be a weird rights situation.
I think it went back to Dark Horse after a certain point, so it's up to Dark Horse.
Yeah. I mean, one thing. I was very surprised when we did get a Crow reboot in 2024, and that's a 90s superhero.
They tried. That was
Bradley Cooper.
Decade of production hell.
Oh yeah,
they tried to reboot it multiple times. Jason Momoa, Mark Wahlberg was originally.
Oh God, I can't imagine
at some
those
point.
Versions.
Bradley
Cooper would
Jason
be an
Momoa,
top dollar.
Jason Momoa was probably the closest it got until the latest iteration. Because, they were raring they had a director, they had a writer, and a script ready to go. And the funding just fell through.
I know me and Dave are going to talk about this when we eventually revisit The Crow 2024, which I actually tried to get him the movie poster for that for Christmas as kind of a gag gift. Because he would have been like, Mike, I hate you. I hate you so much. But
it's not a bad poster.
Yeah,
it's just generic as hell.
I think from the 90s superhero movies, the movies that'll never get touched again, I really think. I don't see we'll see anything in The Crow outside of comic books for a very long time. I'm honestly surprised.
The Crow is a dead franchise at this point.
Honestly,
it's also a cursed franchise. Let's put it that way.
I mean, in
more ways than one.
I mean, if Disney wanted to win some brownie points right now, bringing
depends
back
on
the
who you
Rocketeer
ask.
wouldn't be the worst idea. Fight Nazis, punching Nazis is fun. And I'm trying to think of it depends on who you ask in this current climate. But I think there's something interesting there. We have to wait for Warren Beatty to die for Dick Tracy, but I don't think that'll ever come, which again kind of sucks, because I love the idea of Dick Tracy, because I love all the colorful villains from that.
I mean, honestly, personally, there are some things that
there are time capsules.
There are for me, 90s wasn't when I got into ones that are really connected to my childhood. I'm more early 2000s, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Or the first decade of the 2000s is more my connection, and then a couple things later, I love Hellboy 1 and 2. I still consider Hellboy 2. I still consider one of the best superhero films. Period. So,
agreed. All right, guys. So that's going to bring us to a conclusion here on this edition of Random Access Memories. Like I said, Adam, it's been fantastic. You will be back on the show. I will convince you at Squirt Gun Point. So,
you can follow me on the
people want to find more of you around the interwebs. Where would they have to go?
Instagram and Blue Sky. I do host another show called End Credits, which is on community radio here in Guelph. It's a movie show. where we review one movie a week, and then we also talk about other movie stuff. And you can download that wherever you get podcasts. Just search for the Guelph Politicast channel. Just search for Guelph, and it'll be one of the first ones that come up. And yeah, that's most of my other stuff is political related, and I know that's not this show, so I'll keep it strictly to the movie stuff for you guys.
Good times. All right, there. So me, Ken, Adam, and Dave will be back here on the show. What we're going to talk about, I don't know, because we just kind of make this up as we go. That's why it's Random Access Memories. So for TWIG's RAM from the great state of New Jersey, we have been.
I'm
Ken
Adam
from the
Donaldson.
Sandman.
I'm lurking.
From lurking just outside my apartment, likely.
I'm everywhere.
You, Adam.
Yeah.
I really have to tell people. Yeah, he is lurking. He's outside my window right now. Anyway, I've been Mike the Birdman. We'll catch you guys again real soon right here on thisweekingeek.net. And we don't have a sign off for the show, so I'll just use my usual. Be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time right here on thisweekingeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.